they get so money hungry to a point where they start losing focus on why they were in the game in the first place, and that's something that you can't sacrifice. If you're like, oh, I'm doing this so my kids can be well off, but if you're missing birthdays and you're missing important events, recitals, games, things of that nature, then it's like, what are you doing this for at this point?
Try to live well and prosper. Don't trust your doctor. Ruthless with my wordplay. No, I'm not a shotter, but I got them hits, man, coming straight out the barrio. That's why I'm hip hop sicario. I like my privacy. I show out every now and
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Rolo Runs the City podcast. I am your host, Rolo, and I am glad to be back with you for another week to go ahead and work on this thing we call professional and personal development in any way, facet, form of life where we can try to level up together. But of course, Rolo's going to go in his particulars with the socials, baby. If you want to go ahead and hit me up, feel free to hit me up at Instagram or at Facebook at Rolo Runs the City podcast, as well as Rolo Runs the City music on both platforms. You hit them up, you hit me up. That's what it is. I'm also on TikTok at Rolo Runs the City underscore, as well as X at Rolo Runs the City. And let's not forget, if you're checking out any of the streaming platforms, if you go ahead and you type up Rolo Runs the City, you're either going to run into the podcast or the music. Feel free to check out both. And let's not forget, we also have RoloRunsTheCity.com, where you can check out all things Rolo. It's my main hub. I have merch there. I have several different things going on, so feel free to check that out. But without further ado, we're going to start this episode. And this episode is talking about the temporary. And I really wanted to talk about this because, I mean, people think that things are permanent in this lifetime. Like when they get a position at a job, it's like, oh, is it a temp job or is it a permanent job? Is it a permanent position that I want to be on for a while? Like, no matter what, everything's temporary. No matter what it is, if you want to really look at the technicality of it, it's all temporary. And I definitely wanted to make sure that we harped on this subject. And the reason why is because I think people play with their time. And it could be whether if it's doom scrolling on their phone, whether if it's driving around lollygagging without any real purpose, whether if it's just moving very lackadaisical and not being a person who actually takes inventory of what they're doing with their time. And you have a lot of people that are just straight on autopilot. Let's just be quite honest with it. And autopilot is not a bad thing if you have the greater habits in place. But if you don't, you're kind of squandering your time, and next thing you know, you're gone. Okay? I've seen way too many people um, leave this earth and potential not tapped into. Like they say, uh, the most wealthiest place on this earth is in the ground. Basically, all those that are gone, passed away, dead, however you see it. They say there's so many riches in the graveyard because there's so much untapped potential that never came to fruition in this lifetime. So you definitely don't want to be one of those people that are just squandering their time away and then next thing you know you're gone. Okay. Um, but you don't own anything. Okay. Just think about it, man. You really don't own anything. So you know, you don't own your house, you don't own your vehicles, and you definitely don't own your currency, your bank accounts, whatever sort of assets you have, you don't own them. And the reason why I say that you do not own these things is simply because, one day you're here, the next day you're gone. You ever heard the old adage of you never seen a U-Haul behind a hearse? You can't take it with you, okay? And your time pays for it all. You know what I mean? You really have to think about it. So the next time you decide that you want to pay for those $175 to $225 Jordans, think about how many times like how much time you had to work to make that purchase. Okay, and I noticed this. This is probably about 15, 16 years ago. I started really thinking about how my money was being spent. Well, first of all, at that time, it's probably about 16 years ago, I had like two jobs. I was like going to one job. I was working from I want to say from 7 to 4:30, and then I had to be at the other job from 5:15 to like 11:30 at night. Like I was just running rampant, right? And I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm making decent money. I'm trying to do what I can to propel myself forward. And I would realize that my wife would go out and she would go out to Walmart with her sister, and she would just blow a bag, man. You know, it's like, oh, babe, we got this, and we got that. And it's just like, okay, well, I'm not trying to, I'm not working two jobs to support your shopping habit. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to say that in a negative way. Of course, if you want to spoil yourself in this life, you should feel free to do so. I mean, people who work hard deserve, what they want to get, right? But my whole thing was I was working these two jobs, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, like we're trying to get ahead, and we're kind of hustling backwards right now, as opposed to like creating more income. It's more like outgoing. You know what I mean? So it was something that I kind of, I felt a certain way about. But that's when I started thinking about it. I said, man, when I started purchasing things, I said, damn, how many hours did I have to work to buy this thing? Didn't matter what it was, whether if it was a PlayStation 3, PlayStation games, I'm big into games. Or back at that time, I was, you know, nonstop, right? But I started thinking about things of that nature, and you start thinking, damn, was it really worth buying this thing? Like, was it really worth me working 5 or 6 hours for me to purchase this item? And then when you start thinking about that, then you just have the epiphany that your time is your greatest currency, and you could always make up money, but you can't make up time, right? You'll never get it back. Once it's gone, right? So you have to think about it. Like, you gotta think, damn, how long did I work for this? So it's just one of those things that you really need to think about. But you got to remember, society programs people to chase things, right? Whether if they want the bigger house, they want the new car, whatever title they want to have. Like, hey, I'm the head personal trainer at this LA Fitness, and I'm making X amount of dollars, and come see me. Or, you know, if, oh, I'm, the grand entrepreneur of this business that was failing for 3 years, but now we're thriving for the last 10, or, whatever it is, right? They want to program you for material success. Okay, they say, okay, well, you're going to be rewarded for what you put into the marketplace, right? So if you're able to create good value in the marketplace, in return you get X amount of dollars, therefore you're able to have this material success, which is like the bigger house or the new car, things of that nature, right? But I want to leave something with you real quick, and I want you guys to really understand this, right? Like, a guy buys a house, right? Let's say the year's 1950, right? Who knows how? Probably a house was probably like $5,000-6,000 at that time, okay? Because like at the time, things were really cheap. I mean, we're talking about, like the kids say now, the 1900s, right? But the houses were real cheap back then, probably about $4,000 to $6,000. Obviously, inflation has skyrocketed this same house, because I'm sure the same house is probably sitting there. But the crazy thing is that this man probably busted his hump working at a factory or whatever he did, right? He buys this house, 1950. Next thing you know, he's dead and gone. And his kids probably pass it down to his children, and they probably sold it. They're like, we don't want this old thing, or like, we don't want anything, have anything to do with this. And next thing you know, like that guy, he really put his time into purchasing that home, having that home for his family, and it's not even in their lineage anymore. Like, it's gone. Somebody else is living in it now. Like, it is what it is. Or they could have bulldozed it, and they could have just, created. It's probably sitting on 20 acres of land, and you know, they probably build a new, apartment complex on it. Who knows what they did, right? Maybe a subdivision. Nobody knows. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, a lot of people are subjected to being attached to their possessions, to how hard they worked for it, and not to, realize that one day they'll be gone, and it won't mean as much to the next generation as it meant for you. And the reason being is because they didn't put foot to ass to make that happen. So we shouldn't be really getting consumed about these material things because, like I said earlier in the show, you never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. So I think that's something that really a lot of people really need to take in consideration, just due to the fact that the most important thing that you do have is your time. Okay, and unfortunately, things like this happen where people in poverty want something, right? Whether if it's ownership, just to have that stability. Okay, but I will tell you this: materialism doesn't lead to fulfillment. You know what I mean? And I believe everybody should have the opportunity to own a home, right? That way, when they understand when they do have it, you know, you finally get it, and you realize it doesn't really matter as much as you think it did. And the reason why I say that is because, yeah, it's good to have your own space. Yeah, it's good to have something that you can call your own, right? Not to be around so many neighbors, whatever your motivation is, right? But what I do want people to understand is people get attached to these things because they want that ownership, but that ownership is also like an anchor, which means that it can hold you down. Okay, just like an anchor will hold down a ship. A ship's not going anywhere. The anchor is not, it's put down. Okay, like it's hit the ocean floor, and you're not going anywhere. Okay, that's like kind of how ownership is, and there's no really fluidity with that. Therefore, if you want to make a move and say, "Oh, I'm out of here," you can't. It's not as easy. Okay, but the reason why I say that, I never quite understood as a kid growing up. Obviously, you guys know my situation. If you're new to my show, then understand this. Like I said, I was a kid that grew up in poverty, grew up in public housing, and wasn't subjected to the most greatest of circumstances. We were poor, right? But I will say this, right? I used to think all the time, oh, it's real easy for somebody to say when they're well off that money isn't everything, or it's not the end all be all. And it's like, well, I would always think back in the day, obviously poverty mindset at this time. Well, that's easy for somebody to say who has money. Like, let me experience that. Okay. And I'm so glad and I'm very grateful that I've been able to see all sides of the spectrum. Okay. I remember when I hit my first six figures, I was like, damn, like I never seen money like that, right? Not at once, right? But I did. And I always think to myself, I say, there's only but so much Amazon shopping that you can do. There's only but so much places you can go travel, or, leisure that you really want to just take advantage of. So you're just like, man, I need to get my ass up and get back to work and do what needs to get done. And to be honest with you, that's not a lot of money. It doesn't last long or anything like that. But it just showed me that the way I was just looking at things, I was like, wow, I got to see another side of life that I've never really been able to see before. But once you've seen it and once you've achieved it, you understand where those people who are affluent, who grew up in opulence under, you'll kind of understand where they were coming from at that point. And it's funny, I don't like to bring up celebrities, but whatever, right? We'll bring up Will Smith real quick, right? Like, he always talks about how he's like, yeah, I got all of this. I was the big movie star, you know, granted, I had generational wealth. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. He said, but that's not the most important thing. And he was absolutely right, because what he's alluding to is like your self respect, your health, your family, your experiences. I mean, that's where the real riches are. Okay. And don't get me wrong, we always talk about people, how we want to try to level up, how we want to do well in this life. We want to make sure that we pass stuff down to our offspring and make sure that our progeny is just set for the next 3 or 4 generations. And that's something that I believe is very important and people should strive to do. But at the same time, you can't get lost in why you're doing what you're doing. Like there's some people that they get so money hungry to a point where they start losing focus on why they were in the game in the first place, and that's something that you can't sacrifice. If you're like, oh, I'm doing this so my kids can be well off, but if you're missing birthdays and you're missing important events, recitals, games, things of that nature, then it's like, what are you doing this for at this point? You know what I mean? So people really need to understand and just grasp the concept, like you really don't own anything, but you do own your time. Although we're on borrowed time, like they say, you're on borrowed time, this life is rented. You always have to keep those things in consideration, okay? And then, you know, we're going to talk about real wealth, like I've been alluding to, right? The real wealth is your family, the memories you create, the experiences you have, and the impact that you have on your community. Okay, with your family, no one can be replaced. Okay, you can't go and say, "Oh, well, I want a new kid. I'm going to go purchase one at Walmart." Like that's not how it works. Okay, so it's very important to like always love your family, hold them tight, near and dear to you. It's always a great opportunity to just exercise being a great human being, which is what God set us on this earth to be. Okay, and creating great memories. I remember I seen a nice little picture at a restaurant. My wife and I were eating at one time, and it said, "Collect memories, not things." And of course, I was younger at the time, and I'm just like, I don't get that, right? But of course, as you get older, you start to understand. You open your mind up a little bit more, and you're like, yeah, you know what? I think it's better to just create great memories and experiences that you can actually cherish. And because at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, you're not talking about, oh, yeah, I wish I would have made more money so I could have bought that big 85-inch flat screen TV I seen at Best Buy. And like, you're not doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like, the things that you're talking about is like, hey, I remember when we went out and did this. We had a great run. We did this. We did that. Okay. I'm hoping those years are long, far away from now. And I'm not saying that I'm scared of death, but I am far from ready. Okay. So, what I want people to understand is creating those memories, creating those bonds, having those experiences, and creating a great impact. Those are the things that are going to be remembered on, those last days, okay? And you got to remember that time is the real currency. So if everybody's obviously familiar with the term time is money, it used to make me laugh. And this is like, I'm telling you, like I just went through like a big epiphany probably about, like I said, 15, 16 years ago. I went through this great epiphany because I was going through a lot of things at this point, but I started to really, I guess you could say my third eye opened up at that point, right? And people like broke people say, "Oh, my time is money," and they leave, right? Because they don't want to hear it because they want to get paid for their time, right? Like literally, like they want to get paid currency for their time, but they're not realizing that the real time is your currency. Like this moment in time, okay? I remember when I was working just regular 9 to 5 jobs, and like I would get upset. And I'm gonna tell you just like this. I mean, I'm just being dead honest. I would be highly upset because they would say, "Oh, well, Rolo, you gotta work overtime this weekend," and I'm like, I didn't volunteer to work overtime. Okay, yeah, but we're falling behind, so you're gonna have to work a little overtime. Now, mind you, obviously overtime they're paying you, what is it, time and a half, which is whatever you make at your hourly rate plus half of that. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, like I said, I understood what was absolutely important. It had nothing to do with the money. I didn't care how much you were paying me. It was what I wanted to do with my time, and I did not want to be at a damn job that I didn't enjoy, right? To just obviously fulfill what they needed to get done and advance their agenda. And I was building another man's dream while I was living a nightmare. You know what I mean? So I really think to myself, I'm like, no, the time is the currency. When they say time is money, no, your time is the currency. And once your time is gone, you never get that back. You could always make up the money, but you can never make back up that time. So I couldn't stand when they were like, "Oh well, you're gonna have to bite the bullet on this one. You're gonna have to come in." Like the hell I do. So it was funny. Like I remember the last place that happened to me, dude. I'll be honest with you, I haven't. Wow, I haven't worked at a job for 10 years now. 10 years, right? I haven't worked at a job for 10 years, and and I don't say that to like impress anybody or brag about it, but my thing was I would work extremely hard and somebody else would enjoy the fruits of my labor. And at a point in time, you start recognizing your worth and you're like, you know what? It's not really worth it because my time is the currency. And while I'm putting in the hard work, you're compounding and freeing yourself by me wasting my time so you can build your wealth. I mean, I had a problem with that. You know what I mean? So, and truth be told, in those circumstances, people don't really get paid what they're worth. They make a company, hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars, and they're not even getting crumbs for that. Okay, so that's something that you really need to put into perspective whenever you're understanding this time-based system that we are talking about. And like I said, they say you're on borrowed time. So my recommendation is use your time wisely. Don't think in poverty mindset of, oh, my time is money. Like, in other words, like, oh, you're going to have to pay me for being here. No, like the greatest currency that you're actually accumulating is the fact that you're spending your time the way you want to spend it as opposed to being a sacrificial lamb for somebody else to benefit off of. But I'm gonna leave you with this, man. Okay, go buy that house if you're able to afford it and you can do what you got to do. Go buy your house, man. Drive that car. Drive whatever car you want to drive. Feel free to do it, man. Build that business. Build that business that you've always wanted to build. Okay, you said, man, I'm tired of like working for the man, and I want to go ahead and do this thing on my own. My recommendation is, man, go all in, man. Get your paperwork ready. Do what you gotta do. Get registered with the Secretary of State, and and propel yourself forward, man. You know what I mean? Make sure you get your EIN. That's your tax information with the IRS. Just do all that, man. Like get it set up, man. Legal Zoom, whatever entity you want to use. Okay, hell, just feel free to Google anything, man. You know what I'm saying? It'll walk you right through it. Now you really don't need quote unquote professional assistance when it comes to things like that. But my thing is, your greatest investment that you're making isn't in material possessions. It's in the experiences that you create and the memories you leave behind. All right. And the most important thing that you can possibly do for yourself is to kind of step back from a situation, think outside the box, and execute on your life the way you feel that your life needs to be lived. The problem with a lot of people is that they're conditioned by society to think a certain way, so then that way they could fit and be a cog in this big machine where if you wear out and the grinders are getting at you and the cog falls out of place, they'll just put right another one right in to go ahead and keep the machine going. Whether if you're good or not, it doesn't matter. Okay, I always tell my wife all the time whenever we're talking, I say, hey, you know what? Doesn't matter what's going on, because whether if you're at that place or if you're not at that place, they're going to replace you anyway. Doesn't matter. If they're not happy with you, they want to replace you. If you don't want to be there, they want to replace you. Your job is going to be there after you because it was there before you. It is what it is. But I want you to understand that nothing in this life is owned. It's rented, man. You own nothing. And the sooner you get to understand that, the better off you'll be. I remember I received people phishing emails and all that other stuff, scamming stuff. You know how it goes. And it was something that really put things into perspective. Now, obviously, this was a fake situation, but it actually put things into perspective. So it was like so and so had passed away, and we're collecting money for his wife because she's not doing well financially, and these are the things that he has. And they just put a list of toys. I'm talking about from what is it, from fishing boats to pontoon boats to a PlayStation 5 to a Camaro. I mean, they could have really did a lot better of like not having this person be a well-rounded individual, because obviously like he was supposedly, in the email was supposed to be a sportsman. So obviously that's the reason why he's got the fishing boats, the pontoon and all that other stuff. But then, they threw a little they threw a little PS5 in there, and a Camaro, and ATVs and all that other stuff. Like, I just thought it was funny, right? But it's supposed to be an older guy who has all this random stuff outside of your hunting and sportsman stuff. But it also led me to believe and understand that I looked at this stuff and I said, wow, if this had been real, okay, and people do go through it, right? People have all these material things, man. They have boats, they have their little ATVs where they like to go out. They have their car they like to go drive on the weekends, their motorcycles, whatever it is, man. I mean, hell, some folks have helicopters, some folks have private jets. And the sad thing is, they'll leave. And it's like, man, like they had all this stuff and it didn't keep them from the Grim Reaper taking them, because obviously, death comes for us all. So it really puts things in a perspective of not only, of course, being savvy financially, not wasting your money on a bunch of junk, but just really taking ownership of your time and having the experiences that you deserve to have as a human being. You deserve to travel. You deserve to go eat out at the spot. You deserve to have that experience at that concert. Or if you want to go out to the park and have a picnic with your significant other, you're able to do that. But just really put things into perspective, man. Anyway, man, that is my time for this week. But I really want you guys to understand that next week, we'll be just talking about some more things, trying to level up at any age in our life, and just obviously keep on putting in the great internal work that we do, man. But y'all take care, Godspeed, man. This is Rolo Runs the City. And always remember, be the goat, never a sheep, and don't sleep on your dreams. Peace.